Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Katrina and this is Katrina Reads. So this is a book chat about The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I thought this was going to definitely be a 4 or 5 star read for me. I thought it was a book perfectly made for me because I got the book from a Enneagram type video recommendation, and it sounded like something definitely for Enneagram 4 like myself. It also deals with mental health issues, and the book starts off with a person who kills herself. And I have dealt with, I think I've alluded to it a few times on here, but I have dealt with mental illness my entire adult life. And when I was able to first get out from under my, fundamentalist evangelical household, I came into the military and I started seeing my first counselor there. Went on from there and have had, counselors throughout my adult life. Been on, myriad different depression medicines, and I did have 2 suicide attempts. One that eventually ended up with me being in the hospital and spending time in a mental hospital. And then finally I had a complete break maybe 3 years ago and was diagnosed bipolar. And so I'm on a different set of medicines, and I have a really good therapist, and then I also have another kind of like a lifestyle helper, and that's a social worker that I see. So twice a week I have therapeutic services while being, pretty medicated. And so I thought this book would be quite profound for me as a Enneagram 4, someone who kind of deals with really deep feelings, tends to be melancholy, thinks a lot about regrets in the past. And also, this person, it's not a spoiler, although I think this video might be kind of spoilery, but it's not a spoiler to say that, because the book starts off with, she tried to, this book is like 9 hours before she ends her life or something like that. And so, that's the whole set of the book. Like, she dies and then she goes into all these different, she goes to a midnight library rather than nothingness or heaven and hell or limbo or whatever. And she, the library, so let me read the description because it will lay out the basis of this, and then I can tell you why I haven't even rated the book yet, why I'm struggling with the rating of this book, and maybe by the end of this talk I will have a rating. So here's the book description on Goodreads. Between life and death, there is a library, and within that library, the shelves go on forever. Every book provides a chance to try another life you could have lived, to see how things would be if you had made other choices. Would you have done anything different? If you had the chance to undo your regrets. A dazzling novel about the choices that go into a life well lived, from the internationally best-selling author of Between Life and Death, there is a library, and within that library, the shelves go on forever. Every book provides a chance to try another life you could have lived, to see how things would be if you had made other choices. Would you have done anything different if you had the chance to undo your regrets? Somewhere out beyond the edge of the universe, there is a library that contains an infinite number of books, each one the story of another reality. One tells the story of your life as it is, along with another book for the other life that you could have lived if you had made a different choice at any point in your life. While we all wonder how our lives might have been, what if you had the chance to go to the library and see for yourself? Would any of these other lives truly be better? In The Midnight Library, Matt Haig's enchanting new novel, Nora C. finds herself faced with this decision. Faced with the possibility of changing her life for a new one, following a different career, undoing old breakups, realizing her dream of becoming a glaciologist, She must search within herself as she travels through the Midnight Library to decide what is truly fulfilling in life and what makes it worth living in the first place. Now, one of the things that was good was, she does have all of these bad things happen to her in the beginning of the book. Like, she loses her job. I think she breaks up. But those aren't the things that lead to her killing herself. What leads to her killing herself is finding her cat dead. And that, I think, shows how, like, mundane depression can be. Like, it's so relentless that sometimes big things will cause someone to kill themselves. Like a financial, we all hear about people who, after a stock market crash or something like that, kill themselves or things like that. But a lot of times the will to live will kind of end at a really mundane point in life, because so much, you've just been struggling with it for so long, you're tired of struggling, and that one simple thing, and I'm not putting down the death of an animal as a mundane thing, but like I said, it just wasn't the breakup, it wasn't losing her job, it was the cat dying that was just the one too many things, the camel that broke, the straw that broke the camel's back. And so I like that. And from what I understand, Matt Haig has been very open with his own struggles with depression. And so I'm not taking away at all his experiences as I go forward and try to talk about some of the issues that I have with the book's ending when it comes to how they wrap up the book in regards to mental illness. So you find out that this character, Nora, at one point, she was a good swimmer, to the point where her parents were pushing her to be an Olympic swimmer. She was also in a band that happened to be so good that they could have been signed to, gotten representation, and the idea is that they could have possibly gone on. And her brother was in that band, and because her panic attacks kept her from wanting to go forward, her brother stopped talking to her. And then she broke up with her boyfriend, and then she decides to kill herself. And she wakes up in this library, and she is the librarian is a librarian from when she was in elementary school. And she then starts, she talks to the librarian and everything, and then she starts to open up these books and go into these alternative lives where she made this one little choice or this one big choice. And then whenever she comes to a place of disappointment, when she realizes, oh, this did not lead me to where I thought it was going to lead me, or this lifestyle isn't all that I thought it would be cracked up to be, that's when she fades out and comes back to the library. And then she does end up finally at the end in this life where she decides, what, I just want a comfortable, normal, happy life. It's so funny because I understand that and I saw that in The Bluest Eye as well when I was looking at that, where the little girl, she just wanted to disappear. And I think a hard life sometimes will make you feel that way. Like, I don't need a lot, I just want security and safety and calmness. And I remember not being able to express this when I was first married, and my ex-husband was really flashy and like flashy cars and like ridiculously flashy cars. We were living in like a $300 apartment, and he bought this super over the top expensive car, and then he put like neon green wheels on it, and it was our only vehicle. And I was so mortified because for me, I needed blandness. I needed like to disappear into the background. I didn't need attention because I had so much attention. It was all negative. And so I just needed happy, calm, secure, safe, even-keeled, boring, because boring meant consistency, and I had enough inconsistency. And so in the end, Nora ends up in a life like that, although it was very privileged. She's married to a surgeon. She has this adorable, wonderful little girl. wonderful animals, beautiful home, but it's very safe and calm. And she's come from different lives. She's went through a life where she was a rock star. She went through a life where she was an Olympic athlete. And it just goes on and on. She had these amazing lives. She was a glaciologist where she ended up, almost being attacked by this polar bear, and like she had this, but none of those were it. The thing that she loved the most and stayed in the longest was the ordinary life, which to me still is a life of privilege, but the ordinary life. And she ended up still leaving that life, not for the same reasons as the other ones, but because that still wasn't her life. And so when she came back to it, she ended up being sent back to her actual life. She didn't end up dying. And I watched one review where the lady was saying that it would have been more poignant if the character had died, because then she would have to see, or the reader would have to see how much suicide would have affected the other people. And I don't know if we had to see that. Maybe if there was a little bit more emphasis whether she lived or died on that, because one of the things that kind of broke me out of the suicidal ideation, along with medicine and therapy, was the therapist kind of continually getting me to understand, like, I had a fear of dying at 28 and leaving my children behind, because my mom died and left 4 children behind at 28. And she died of cancer, but I had that severe fear, while at the same time having this. No one says mental illness makes sense, but this doctor was able to bring those two ideas together for me and say, look, when you're in the worst of it and you're thinking about just ending the pain for yourself, that pain will still reverberate throughout generations possibly. And so that was one of the things that really woke me up. And so that idea that, that her death would have reverberated, what should have maybe been something that was discussed, whether or not she went on to live or not. But the fact that when she came back to her life and she talked to the stand-in, it wasn't really her librarian, but the avatar that walked her through everything that she was going through at the Midnight Library, ended up talking to her in Instagram quotes. And there was nothing deep or profound about her deciding to come back to her life. It was like, so she came back and lived in her original life. Everything was fine except the cat didn't come back to life. But her brother started talking to her again. She got her job back. Like, everything else was fine. And then she was happy. And that's not how depression works. Everything could go perfectly well in my life, but the chemicals in my brain warping the way that I think and see the world would block me from seeing that. And the neural groove, the grooves that I've made in my brain, where I always see the bad things, have to be rerouted, and I have to work by journaling and doing worksheets and constantly talking and constantly meditating on all the different, ways that you have to rewire your brain to think and rewire your ability to see the good in your life. None of that work was done. If everything started going perfectly in my life, my brain is still wired to think negatively. I think if she had went through all of those things and realized that, and that was part of the work, and then in the end came back to her life and it's still being the same, and then she calling a therapist, that would have been made more sense. Her deciding to live and then making allusions to the fact that she was then going to do the work that would then still need to take place to make it so that she could be successful in that choice. That would have been more responsible. And there's a way, I don't know how to do it, but there has to be a way to make that dramatic enough to make for a satisfying ending of a book. And I think it gives the wrong message to people who deal with people who have mental illness, because it adds into and it feeds into that whole idea that if they just did this, then they would be better. If they just exercised or ate right, or, you know, some of those things are part of an entire holistic plan to get better. But an illness is an illness. If I have cancer, cutting down on sugars that feed, you know, we know that sugar feeds cancer and makes it more, you know, that would obviously help, but I can't just diet my way out of having cancer. I still have to go do some pretty invasive, difficult things depending on what's going, you know, at what stage, or what my doctors recommend. I still need to go to the doctor. I still need to be diagnosed. I still need a biopsy. I still need to have the tumor taken out or shrunk with radiation and do chemo. I still need to do all of that to deal with this very real thing. And mental illness is that way. Someone who is so depressed that they complete a suicide is not going to get better just because they get some sunshine and read a happy Facebook quote. The person who decides that, okay, my life is worth living, and so then that's my first step towards then going to the doctor, that would have been more not just responsible. I think the book was easy to read. It was interesting. It was a really cool premise. It was great to the science fiction aspect of going into all these different worlds. You know, it's like time travel, like jumping in and out of different lives. Is a very cool concept. But I think I can't give it more than a 2.5 because of that very damaging ending. I think it sets back the ideas that we've come to when it comes to mental illness, because it plays into a more secular idea of pray it away, I feel. So to keep this from going on too long and to keep me from rambling and repeating myself, I'm going to end it here. Let me know if you felt the same way, if you read the book and you felt the same way. I see that the book has lots of really high scores on Goodreads, and it has high scores from people that I love watching here on BookTube. And so if you've read the book and agree or disagree, please let me know down in the comment box. Let's have a conversation about this. So if you made it to the end of the video, let's use the two emojis of one of that plain building and a stack of books to denote a library. And thank you so much for supporting the channel by liking, subscribing, and ringing that bell so that you know when I upload a video. Be easy on yourself, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.